Papers, now, green card, or you're under arrest. That's how it started. A loudmouth cop pulling over a calm black man, barking orders like he owned the street. Didn't ask questions, didn't check facts, just saw skin color, heard an accent, and jumped straight into power mode. But what he didn't know? He wasn't talking to some random guy. He was talking to someone who outranked him. Someone who didn't need to yell to shut him down. Because some badges don't sit on your chest. They sit in your silence, and hit harder than any shout ever could. Stick around. This one flips faster than he could draw breath. It was 7:46 a.m. on a Tuesday. The highway was just starting to wake up. Mothers dropping off kids, tradesmen heading to job sites, executives sipping coffee in traffic. And among them, in lane 3, was a sleek charcoal sedan, clean but modest, moving exactly at the speed limit. Behind the wheel sat Musa Diallo, a black man in his late 30s. His eyes were calm, alert, focused. A voice memo was playing through the car speakers, some kind of podcast on leadership and accountability. He wasn't rushing, wasn't distracted. He had just left the gym, heading toward his precinct, though nobody on the road would guess that from the outside. That's when the red and blue lights flashed behind him. Musa blinked, glanced in the mirror, and smoothly pulled over to the shoulder. No panic, no change in expression. He turned off the engine, rolled down the window, and rested his hands on the steering wheel. The officer approached quickly, heavy boots on pavement, sunglasses still on despite the morning light. Before even reaching the window, he barked, "License, registration, immigration documents, let's go." Musa looked up, meeting his gaze. "Good morning, officer. May I ask what?" "Just give me the papers. Green card, visa, whatever you've got. I don't want a speech." There was a pause. Musa didn't move, not in defiance, just in quiet calculation. "I'm a U.S. citizen," he said calmly. "Born in Dakar, naturalized 15 years ago. But I'd still like to know the reason for the stop." The officer leaned in closer. "Reason? How about this? Black guy in a foreign car, tinted windows, refusing to comply. That sound like a reason to you?" The insult hung in the air, heavy, bitter. A car passed slowly, driver holding up a phone, recording silently. A woman jogging nearby slowed her pace. Musa didn't react. He reached slowly and deliberately for the glove compartment. Inside was the registration, the license, and something else. But he didn't pull it out. Not yet. The officer took the license, barely looked at it before snorting. "Diallo? What is that, Nigerian, Somali?" "Senegalese," Musa replied. The cop scoffed. "Figures." He turned toward his squad car, walking with the confidence of someone who thought the story was already written. Musa watched him go, expression unreadable. Not angry, not afraid, just patient. Because people like this officer had been writing the same chapter for too long, and Musa knew something he didn't. This chapter wasn't going to end the way he expected. The officer sat in his cruiser for longer than necessary. His computer screen glowed, fingers tapping the keyboard, but he wasn't running a full check, just pretending to. Like the stop itself, the performance was hollow, meant only to assert dominance. Back outside, traffic continued to stream past in lazy morning rhythm. Musa remained still, hands visible, window down, eyes forward. A second squad car arrived behind the first. Back up. Too fast for protocol, too eager for what should have been a routine license check. The second officer approached on the passenger side. He was younger, nervous, kept glancing at Musa, then back at his partner in the cruiser. A few more pedestrians gathered across the median. One man on a bike stopped completely, filming with his phone. A woman called out, "Is everything okay, sir? Do you need help?" Musa didn't answer, didn't move. He was used to this. Not the cameras, not the crowd, but the balancing act. The pressure of staying composed when every second of stillness is interpreted as guilt, when calmness is called suspicious, when speaking up becomes resisting. The officer finally stepped out of his cruiser again, sunglasses off now, lips curled with condescension. "You think you're slick, huh? You don't look legal and you're way too calm. What are you hiding?" He waved the license in the air. "You sure this isn't fake?" Musa didn't blink. "That's a federal offense." he said quietly. "Accusing a citizen of carrying false identification without cause," the officer smirked. "Oh, you know the law now?" A few chuckles came from inside the second cruiser. The rookie officer didn't laugh. He just looked uncomfortable. That's when Musa reached for the glove compartment again. This time, slowly, deliberately, he pulled out a black leather wallet. Not bulky, not flashy. He opened it, held it out the window. Inside was a badge, worn but unmistakable. NYPD, Sergeant. The gold caught the sunlight as the murmurs from the crowd grew louder. The rookie officer's face changed immediately. But the first cop? He stared at it, frozen, then squinted. "This yours?" Musa nodded once. "Yes, Unit 542, Internal Affairs." Silence. Real silence now. The kind that cuts through arrogance and noise like a blade. From the sidewalk, the biker said softly, "Did he just say internal affairs?" Someone else gasped. The rookie officer stepped back, eyes wide. The lead cop's jaw clenched. What once looked like control was now unmistakable panic. Musa placed the badge calmly back in the wallet, then added, almost as an afterthought, "I'd suggest you check again before asking for green cards." The leather wallet was back in Musa's jacket, but the damage was done, not to him, to the officer. The second cop, rookie, maybe 2 years in uniform, stood awkwardly beside the patrol car, eyes darting between his partner and Musa. The color had drained from his face. He looked like a man realizing he had wandered into a forest fire with a match. The crowd across the median had grown. A mother with her 2 kids stood filming, her expression twisted between anger and disbelief. A jogger had returned, phone out, whispering updates into a live stream. A city sanitation worker had pulled his truck over and crossed his arms, watching silently. Everyone had seen the badge. Everyone had heard the words, internal affairs. It hit differently, because every cop knows what that means. IA doesn't wear a uniform. IA doesn't bluff. And IA doesn't forget. The officer who had barked demands just minutes ago now stood frozen in the sun. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally spoke. You should have identified yourself sooner." Musa didn't smile, didn't move. "I didn't need to," he said evenly. "You didn't ask who I was. You decided what I was." His tone was neutral, but the words landed like lead. The second officer took a careful step forward. "Sir, do you need us to call anyone?" Musa's eyes didn't leave the first cop. "No, I'll handle the report myself. Unit 542. This interaction's already been documented." The lead cop's voice cracked slightly. "Look, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. Tensions are high these days. You know how it is." "Do I?" Musa asked softly. Another car slowed to a stop behind the patrol vehicles. A man in a suit stepped out, wearing a city insignia pin. He looked from Musa to the cop, eyes narrowing. "Everything all right here?" Musa nodded slightly. "We were just finishing up." The man gave a subtle nod back, almost like recognition, then turned to the officer. "You might want to wrap this up, officer. This is already trending online." The cop's head snapped toward the crowd. At least 5 phones pointed directly at him. One of them was streaming live. He reached for his radio, mumbled something into it, then handed Musa's license and registration back, hands shaking just enough to betray the fear beneath his sunglasses. Musa took them without a word. He started the car, pulled smoothly into traffic, didn't look back. But the story didn't end there, because by the time he reached the precinct, the clip had already passed 10,000 views. By noon, it was on the local news. By 6 p.m., it had reached national coverage. And somewhere in a quiet office that night, the officer sat alone, watching the footage play over and over again, each frame reminding him not just of his mistake, but of the man who never raised his voice, never broke a sweat, and still tore down every false truth he thought he knew. By the next morning, the video had surpassed 2 million views, not because of shouting, not because of violence, but because of silence, controlled, powerful, and precise. The footage was everywhere. Cable news, social media reels, talk radio, People weren't just watching the officer's mistake, they were studying Musa's stillness, how he didn't flinch when accused, how he didn't justify his existence, how he waited, quietly, until truth did the work for him. Comment sections were flooded. "This is why I teach my son to stay calm. Respect doesn't need volume." He said more without talking than that officer did in 2 minutes. Inside the precinct, things moved fast. Captain Alvarez called Musa into her office before his shift even began. She didn't sit. "You understand this puts us in a spotlight," she said. "I do." "You think I'm mad?" she asked. Musa raised an eyebrow. "Are you?" She exhaled, half amusement, half tension. "No, I'm impressed. You handled it better than I would have. But IA or not, you just lit a fuse under every department in the state. They're calling this a textbook example of bias. Some are calling for disciplinary hearings, others for training reform." Musa sat finally. "I didn't set out to make a statement," he said. "I was just going to work." Alvarez nodded. "And that's what makes it louder than a speech." Elsewhere in the city, conversations rippled. At a high school civics class, a teacher paused the lesson to play the clip, asking, "What's the right way to respond when you're disrespected, but in the right?" At a coffee shop near the courthouse, 2 junior attorneys whispered about it between sips, one saying, "That man should be teaching ethics at the academy." And at a local police station, not Musa's, an uncomfortable silence spread through roll call as the video was replayed for training purposes. The officer in the video, name withheld, but not for long, had requested administrative leave. Internal Affairs had launched a formal inquiry, but Musa didn't tweet, didn't grant interviews, didn't post. He just showed up to work the next day like nothing had happened, badge polished, tie straight, calm intact, because to him this wasn't about virality, it was about dignity, and dignity doesn't need a spotlight, it just needs to stand its ground. It was late, past midnight. The city outside was soft with rain, and the office at Precinct 17 was quiet. Most officers had gone home. Only a handful remained, writing reports, restocking gear, brewing stale coffee. Musa sat alone at his desk, the badge resting beside his notepad. He stared at it, not in pride, but reflection, not on the viral moment, but on everything before it. 17 years earlier, Musa had arrived in America with one suitcase and a smile that still carried pieces of Senegalese sun. He was 22, spoke English with a musical French undertone, and believed deeply in fairness. His first job was night shift security at a car rental garage. His first insult came on day 2. A man in a suit tossed keys at his chest and said, "Don't scratch it, Africa." Musa didn't reply, just wrote the license plate down carefully, like procedure taught. He learned then, not every insult needs an answer. Some only need a witness. Years passed. He studied, took odd jobs, sent money home. And when his mother passed, he couldn't afford the flight back for the funeral. Still, he stayed. He passed the citizenship test with perfect scores, joined the academy, became one of the few officers fluent in Wolof, French and Spanish. And when a fellow officer once joked that his accent made him sound like a Bond villain, he didn't respond, because he remembered something his mother once told him, long before she died. Silence from the strong is not weakness, it is mercy. That memory returned often, especially during stops like the one from this week. He knew what could have happened, what almost happened, but he also knew how quickly anger is used to justify fear, and how fear is used to rewrite the truth. So he chose, once again, silence. But this time, the world had decided to listen anyway. As he sat at his desk, fingers running along the edge of the badge, a quiet knock came at the door. It was the rookie cop from the traffic stop. He stepped inside, hat in hand, uncertain. "Sergeant Diallo," he said. "Can I speak to you?" Musa nodded once. The young man stepped forward, voice low. I didn't know who you were. I didn't know what he was doing was wrong until I saw your face, the way you didn't flinch. I froze." Musa looked up. "That's how it starts," he said, "with freezing. No, Musa replied, with recognizing it. The rookie exhaled, shoulders loosening. I just wanted to say thank you for how you handled it, for not destroying him, even though you could have. Musa nodded again and finally said, We don't destroy with anger. We rebuild with example. The city kept moving. News cycles shifted. Another scandal, another outrage, another moment. But something about this story refused to fade. Maybe it was the video, maybe it was the stillness, or maybe it was because for once, a man didn't need to shout to be heard. He just needed to stand there, still, whole, unbent. Weeks passed. Musa received emails from across the country, black parents thanking him for showing their children that control could be powerful, immigrants sharing stories of their first humiliations in a new land, officers from the very system that doubted him, asking if he'd speak at their trainings. He never replied with fanfare, just short notes. Glad it helped. Thank you for watching. Stay aware. Stay kind. He wasn't interested in becoming a symbol, but symbols are rarely chosen. They emerge when the world refuses to look away. One afternoon, the precinct hosted a closed-door session on de-escalation and racial bias. Musa was asked to lead. He stood in front of 40 officers, some older than him, some younger, some skeptical. He didn't raise his voice, didn't show the video. He just asked one question. When was the last time you asked a man who he was, instead of assuming? Silence. Then slowly, one by one, hands began to rise. The room became conversation. Conversation became reflection, and reflection eventually became change. Later that week, Musa passed through the same intersection where he was pulled over. No lights, no cameras, no commotion. Just a father walking home in his uniform. A teenage boy on the corner stopped him, held up his phone. You're the guy from the video, right? The one who didn't yell. Musa smiled gently. I guess so. The boy nodded. My mom made me watch it like 5 times. Said that's what strength looks like. Musa's smile faded into something softer. Tell her thank you, he said. And tell her you already have it too. The boy looked confused. What? The strength, Musa said. You already have it. You just have to decide when to use it. As Musa walked away, the sun caught the edge of his badge. Not the one on his belt, but the invisible one etched in how he carried himself. That day on the road, he hadn't raised his voice. But somehow, the whole world heard him, because sometimes the most powerful authority doesn't come from the badge on your chest. It comes from the voice you choose not to raise.